I'll show you something very special if you promise to put your grubby little hand behind your back and keep them there.
Now, regardless of when you think it stopped being cool, The Simpsons is the background noise of pop culture, enough that we can take a third dive into its secrets, Easter eggs, and references. Now, The Simpsons sends up pop culture, so it's only natural that pop culture would make its way into the show in the form of cameos. Most of them are credited as part of the draw for the episode, but some cameos are poorly kept secrets.
Whatever.
There are a lot of fans of The Simpsons, including some famous ones. Now, one of the most famous people ever is included in that list, as the king of pop, Michael Jackson, was a big fan of the show. In the hopes of giving Bart Simpson a #1 hit, he wrote "Do the Bartman" and choreographed the actual dance. Now, he also asked to be on the show itself, though when the time came, he was not actually credited as Michael Jackson, but instead John J. Smith.
Next question is why?
Now, the episode, which featured Homer befriending someone who thinks they're Michael Jackson, who clearly is not, also includes a part where the fake Jackson, being voiced by the real Jackson, helps Bart write a birthday song for his sister Lisa that was sung by a different fake Jackson, Kip Lennon. Part of the reason was a joke Michael was playing on his brothers to see if an impersonator could fool them.
I think it would be wiser to keep quiet about this for now.
Another early guest voice didn't have his name credited simply because it hadn't become the juggernaut that it is today. So, when Dustin Hoffman did the voice of Mr. Bergstrom, the first teacher to foster Lisa's brilliance in the episode Lisa's Substitute, instead, Hoffman was credited as Sam Ettick.
Very good.
A nod to both Hoffman and Mr. Bergstrom being Jewish. Now, not every celebrity appearance is voiced by the celebrity themselves, especially when they're being sent up for something.
Well, duh.
When the classic rock band The Who made an appearance on The Simpsons in the episode A Tale of Two Springfields, Pete Townsend wasn't available to record his line, so they got the next best thing: Pete Townsend's brother, Paul Townsend. Former Attorney General Janet Reno has made a few appearances on The Simpsons, but advancing Parkinson's made recording longer lines more difficult. So, for her last appearance in the episode Dark Knight Court, Janet Reno's sister, Maggie Reno Herchala, filled in.
Are you wearing hard sole shoes on this gym floor?
No, ma'am.
Thanks to the magic of mergers and Disney absorbing everything in sight, both The Simpsons and Marvel Comics are under the roof of the House of the Mouse.
I'm the mascot of an evil corporation.
Long before that, however, they were already sharing space in the pages of Marvel's New Warriors number 27. New Warrior Speedball finds himself in Springdale, Connecticut, investigating damage that had been happening in the town. When he gets there, he's promptly accused of causing it, forcing him to flee the police into the home of a very familiar-looking family. Now, when The Simpsons was just starting, the animated adventures of The Real Ghostbusters was finishing its run. The Simpsons had only been on for a year when the Ghostbusters episode Guess What's Comin' to Dinner had a very Simpsons-looking ghost family take over the Ghostbuster firehouse while the Ghostbusters were away. In a show like The Simpsons, where the characters don't age and parody and comedy are the driving force, one wouldn't expect there to be much continuity. Except there is. For instance, when a writer is fired from the Itchy and Scratchy show, in a future episode with a scene at the unemployment office, that writer is waiting in line for his unemployment check. All the way back to episode 22 of season 2, Mr. Burns gives Bart a giant ceremonial head as a belated thanks for Bart providing a life-saving blood transfusion, much to Homer's disappointment. The head keeps showing up in The Simpsons' basement dozens of seasons later. When Homer's pin pals make their run for the championship, one of the teams they encounter is the Homewreckers, made up entirely of characters who have either tried to seduce Homer or Marge. The Pin Pal shirts make their way around Springfield as well, with a character voiced by John Waters picking up one for its kitsch value. When Homer puts his foot down and grounds Bart from seeing the Itchy and Scratchy movie, the motivation to stand by his guns is that if he is given discipline and direction, Bart could become a Supreme Court judge. Now, The Simpsons have glanced into the future a few times since, mostly with the young adult Bart being the person that you would expect him to be, but Bart's eventual appointment to the highest court in the land remains canon. Now, one of the realities of being an actor is that you don't always end up getting the role that you're out for. That is certainly true of the now iconic voice cast of The Simpsons.
I gotta go, my damn wiener kids are listening.
We are not wieners.
Yeardley Smith's unique voice has been lent to what Flanders once called the answer to the question no one asked Lisa Simpson. But that's not the role she tried out for. She had originally read for Bart, but her voice was too much like a girl's. She took it in stride because she hadn't considered doing voice work at the time. Now, similarly, Nancy Cartwright had intended to read for Lisa, but liked Bart better, so she gave that a go and Groening hired her on the spot. Celebrities and public figures aren't the only ones to make appearances in the show. Creator Matt Groening has made a number of appearances in the show that made him a household name. He's been at a comic book convention or being banned by Comic Book Guy. Now, there is another way that Groening has appeared in many episodes right under everyone's nose. Part of Maggie Simpson's suckling on her pacifier sound comes from Groening. Producer Sam Simon gets a parody appearance in The Simpsons' 138th episode Spectacular, where Groening was portrayed as a surly bald man with an eye patch. Simon was depicted like Howard Hughes when the inventor businessman became a recluse who wasn't clipping his nails. When The Simpsons became a hit, it might have been new for some of the people involved. But for James L. Brooks, it was just one of many. His career stretched back to The Mary Tyler Moore Show and My Mother the Car, and included an Oscar for Terms of Endearment, which he wrote, produced, and directed. And that's just part of his career of hits. So, when Brooks made a cameo in the show, he appeared like Mr. Moneybags from the Monopoly game. When The Simpsons first aired, the lead singer of Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman, had just found a new career thanks to finding himself scoring the movies of Tim Burton. Groening asked him for a classic theme that would go on to become one of Elfman's most recognizable themes. The opening credits include a nod to the composer, with a business named after the composer.
Anybody see it?
Oh, over here.
If The Simpsons had a golden age, it might be down to one writer, John Swartzwelder. But if you don't recognize the name the way you would former writers like Dana Gould or Conan O'Brien, it's by design, as Swartzwelder is notoriously a recluse, refusing to even do commentary tracks for the show.
All right, leeches, I want you to see what a good writer looks like.
He has, however, shown up on the show. In the episode Hurricane Ned, the actor is a patient at a mental health facility, and when people gather outside to celebrate Flanders' release, there's one person in the crowd holding a sign calling to free John Swartzwelder. There is a surprising amount of very complicated math portrayed in The Simpsons. One of those is Fermat's last theorem, which suggests that there is no three numbers that will satisfy the equation x to the power of n plus y to the power of n equals z to the power of n. I don't actually know what that means. It's been a long time since I've been in school, but according to people who do, when Homer writes the theorem on the chalkboard in the episode The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, he gets remarkably close to actually solving the problem, one that wasn't actually solved in 1995, over 300 years after it was first proposed. The same episode contains a formula predicting the weight of the Higgs boson particle, which turned out to be wrong, but they got close when it was finally discovered in 2012. Anything popular enough will eventually have someone making things from the show or movie for them to have.
Bort? Oh, come on, Bort?
When Homer finds out that he has a successful half-brother that owns a car company, Homer promptly tanks that company by designing for him a car so bad and so expensive that it closes the company after just the prototype. So, for the tongue-in-cheek junk car racing series 24 Hours of Le Mans, a group of superfans took a BMW that had already been made up like Christine and a porcupine as a nod to an off-color joke about BMW drivers, and created a real-world Homer.
I'm ruined!
In 1997, Fox teamed up with a developer in Nevada to build an exact replica of 742 Evergreen Terrace, the Simpsons' iconic home, and to give it away to one lucky fan. Turns out, the winner wasn't into having the house located 16 miles outside of Las Vegas, opting instead for the cash alternative. Some of the most iconic characters in Springfield don't seem to have names, so much as a brief description like a Comic Book Guy or Bumblebee Man. Except that some of these characters actually do have a name, it's just that no one knows it or bothers to use it. Comic book guy is actually Jeffrey Albertson. Bumblebee Man, Springfield's Spanish-language TV star, is in fact Pedro Chespirito. The squeaky-voiced, pimply-faced teen is actually named Jeremy Friedman. Crazy Cat Lady was once a successful lawyer named Eleanor Abernathy. There is one cameo that's not like the others. During the Christmas episode The Fight Before Christmas, singer Katy Perry became the only person to do a live-action cameo on The Simpsons. The episode is an anthology of Christmas stories from the family members, with Maggie imagining the family as Muppet-style puppets.
What the hell was that?
The appearance itself was a meta-reference to Perry herself, who had appeared on Sesame Street with Elmo, only to have that segment withdrawn for being too sexy.
Hey, yay, 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 yay.
Viewers of The Simpsons over the course of several seasons would get glimpses of Rainier Wolfcastle's signature character McBain. While seemingly random, it turns out that if you string all those scenes together, you get the highlights of a McBain movie. But McBain wasn't the only one who was bound for a life of their own. Actor Troy McClure, who you might remember from such films as Dial M for Murderousness, Sorry, Wrong Closet, and Today We Kill, Tomorrow We Die, almost ended up actually being in a film as a live-action character. Phil Hartman, who voiced Troy McClure, had been negotiating to buy the rights to the character for a live-action adaptation. Unfortunately, the actor was killed before that could become a reality, and we're left to wonder what might have been.
How about that? I looked something up.
But had Troy McClure broken free of The Simpsons into other media, he wouldn't have been the first. In 2009, in an attempt to get readers in their 20s, as opposed to their regular reader demographic in their mid-30s, men's magazine Playboy featured Marge Simpson on the cover, as well as a 3-page spread, making her the only fictional character to appear on the cover of the long-running magazine. Not everything cultural translates when the show is translated, especially when the show appears in less permissive societies. Like, the Egyptian dub of The Simpsons has Homer really enjoying soda since drinking alcohol is a taboo.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies?
The French actors who dubbed Marge and Homer met on the job when they auditioned for the roles. 12 years later, the pair got married. Serving up a single term from 1988 to 1992, George H.W. Bush was the president as The Simpsons premiered and started capturing the nation's imagination. It's safe to say that he was not a fan. As a result, The Simpsons took a few stabs at the president, culminating in an episode where the former president moves into Springfield and gets into a rivalry with Homer.
The boy is named Bart. I don't know the name of the man. Bar? What's the name of the man?
Don't tell writer John Swartzwelder or the writing staff of The Simpsons what they can't do. Fox was looking to soften its image a bit and wanted to curb the amount of violence on their shows, suggesting that The Simpsons stop adding the comically violent Itchy and Scratchy segments of The Simpsons. In response, they sent an entire episode revolving around Itchy and Scratchy, including a violent Disneyland-style Itchy and Scratchy land, making it impossible to cut Itchy and Scratchy out. They also threatened to tattle to the press if Fox pulled the episode. Eventually, the writers won out, and Itchy and Scratchy remains a part of the series. Another famous episode sees Moe taking credit for a cocktail created by Homer to survive a night with Marge's sisters.
My name is Moe and I invented it. That's why it's called a Flaming Moe.
The episode was long thought to be an allegory of the relationship between producer Sam Simon and Matt Groening over who deserved credit for The Simpsons' success, something Sam Simon tacitly confirmed years later. Obviously, it's not a new concept that names have meanings, and The Simpsons have leaned into that. To populate Springfield, initially Groening went with what he knew. His family provided the names of the titular Simpsons, with Bart replacing Matt. For the surrounding cast, he just named them after what was around him. Portland. Many of the names come from street or place names around Portland. Milquetoast Millhouse has some less than milquetoast namesakes. Millhouse appears to be the middle name of Richard Nixon. Millhouse's middle name is even more severe. It's Mussolini. His grandmother on his mom's side suggests that's because she had a romance with the fascist leader of Italy.
That's terrible.
Aliens Kang and Kodos get their names from a decidedly alien source, Star Trek. Kang is a Klingon from the original series, and Kodos comes from Kodos the Executioner, a human villain from the original series. Some names are just a matter of convenience. For the longest time, Mo didn't need a last name, but for the Who Shot Mr. Burns cliffhanger, he was given the first S last name they could find so that his initials would be MS, making him a suspect. With Fox holding the rights to The Simpsons all the way into 2084, there's likely to be a never-ending supply of America's favorite family. Enough to fill 8 more videos of Easter eggs and secrets.
Oh, look at me. I'm making people happy. I'm the magical man from Happy Land.